Chapter 1. Chapter 1. The dream begins. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the horizon, where the ocean met the heavens. In the previous chapter, Brad had stood at the precipice of his life, grappling with the weight of his choices. He had faced the ghosts of his past, the shadows of regret looming large, and made a decision that would change everything. Now, he found himself on a sun-soaked beach, the salty breeze tousling his hair, the distant laughter of women echoing in his ears like a siren's call. As he stepped onto the warm sand, it felt as if he had crossed into another realm. The grains shifted beneath his feet, each step sinking slightly, grounding him in this surreal paradise. The vibrant colors of the beach enveloped him. The azure of the ocean, the brilliant yellows and pinks of the umbrellas dotting the shore, and the vivid hues of the women's bikinis as they danced and dove for the volleyball that soared through the air like a comet. Brad's heart raced, a mix of excitement and nervousness coursing through him. He had always been drawn to the ocean, its vastness mirroring the depths of his own emotions. But this beach, this place, felt different. It was as if he had stumbled into a dream, where reality blurred and possibilities stretched infinitely before him. He could almost taste the salt on his lips, the tang of adventure mingling with the sweet scent of coconut oil wafting from a nearby beachgoer. He paused, allowing himself to absorb the scene. The women, with their carefree laughter and sun-kissed skin, were a whirlwind of energy. They leapt and dove, their bodies moving with a grace that made his heart flutter. He felt a pang of longing, a desire to be part of their world, to shed the weight of his past and embrace the joy of the moment. Yet, he hesitated, rooted in place by a mix of awe and self-doubt. "Hey, you!" one of the women called out, her voice bright and inviting. She had long, flowing hair that caught the sunlight, creating a halo around her head. "Come join us." Brad's breath caught in his throat. He glanced around, half expecting her to be addressing someone else. But no, her gaze was fixed on him, a playful smile dancing on her lips. The other women turned, their eyes sparkling with mischief and encouragement. "Yeah, come on," another chimed in, her laughter ringing like a bell. "We need one more for our team." He felt the heat rise to his cheeks, a mix of embarrassment and exhilaration. I don't know how to play," he stammered, his voice barely rising above the sound of the waves crashing against the shore. "Doesn't matter," the first woman insisted, her enthusiasm infectious. "It's all about having fun. Just hit the ball when it comes to you." With a deep breath, Brad stepped forward, the sand shifting beneath his feet as he approached the group. As he drew closer, he could see the details of their faces, the way their eyes sparkled with mischief and joy. They were a tapestry of personalities. Some bold and boisterous, others shy and sweet. But all radiated a warmth that made him feel welcome. "Okay, I'm in," he said, a grin breaking through his initial hesitation. The thrill of spontaneity surged through him, pushing aside the shadows of his past. He joined the circle, the ball bouncing between them, laughter erupting like fireworks as they played. As the game progressed, Brad found himself losing track of time. The sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the world in shades of orange and pink. He felt alive, the worries that had plagued him fading with each hit of the ball. The women were encouraging, their cheers lifting him higher, and for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of belonging. "Nice shot," one of the women exclaimed, her voice ringing with excitement as he managed to send the ball soaring over the net. He couldn't help but laugh, the sound bubbling up from deep within him, a release of pent-up tension. "Who knew you had it in you?" another teased, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "You're a natural." Brad shrugged, a playful smile on his lips. "I guess I just needed the right motivation." As the game continued, he found himself stealing glances at the woman who had first called him over. Her name was Mia, he learned, and she had a way of making him feel seen, as if she could peer into the depths of his soul and understand the turmoil that lay beneath his surface. There was something magnetic about her, a pull that drew him closer even as he fought to keep his distance. "Are you from around here?" she asked during a break, her voice softening as she wiped the sweat from her brow. The sun highlighted the freckles on her nose, making her look even more enchanting. "Not really," he admitted, his heart racing at the intimacy of the moment. "Just passing through, trying to escape everything." Her expression shifted, a flicker of understanding passing between them. "Sometimes, we all need to escape," she said, her gaze steady. "But you can't run forever, you know." Her words struck a chord deep within him, a reminder of the ghosts he had left behind. He opened his mouth to respond, to confess the weight he carried, but the moment was interrupted by a sudden shout from one of the other women. "Watch out!" she yelled, pointing toward the ocean. Brad turned just in time to see a wave crashing toward them, a wall of water rising like a giant's hand. Instinct kicked in, and he grabbed Mia's hand, pulling her away from the incoming tide. They stumbled back, laughter spilling from their lips as the wave crashed harmlessly at their feet, spraying them with cool droplets. "Nice save," she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I think you're my hero now." Brad's heart raced, not just from the thrill of the moment but from the connection that sparked between them. He could feel the tension building, a current of unspoken words hanging in the air. But before he could voice the thoughts swirling in his mind, the game resumed, and the moment slipped away like sand through his fingers. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the beach, Brad felt a sense of peace wash over him. The laughter, the camaraderie, the thrill of the game. It all felt like a balm to his weary soul. But beneath the surface, a storm brewed, the shadows of his past lurking just out of sight. Later, as the group settled down on the sand, the remnants of their game scattered around them, Brad found himself sitting next to Mia. The warmth of her body radiated against his, and he could feel the electricity in the air, a tension that crackled like static. They shared stories, laughter mingling with the sound of the waves, and for a moment, he forgot about the weight of his past. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. The swim. The sun hung high in the azure sky, casting a golden glow over the beach that felt almost surreal. In the previous chapter, Brad had found himself captivated by the vibrant scene around him. The laughter of women playing beach volleyball, the rhythmic crash of waves, and the intoxicating scent of salt and sunscreen. It was a world that felt both inviting and intimidating, a dreamscape where he was both an outsider and a participant. With a deep breath, he had decided to embrace the moment, feeling a flicker of confidence ignite within him. Now, standing at the water's edge, the waves lapping at his feet, Brad felt the thrill of adventure coursing through his veins. He glanced back at the group of women, their laughter ringing like music in the air, and his heart raced. He could feel their eyes on him, and for a fleeting moment, he imagined himself as the hero of a summer romance, the kind that played out in movies. With a determined nod to himself, he stepped forward into the cool embrace of the ocean. The water enveloped him, refreshing and invigorating, washing away the remnants of his earlier self-doubt. He swam out, feeling the buoyancy of the sea lift him, and with each stroke, he tried to channel the grace of a dolphin. He could hear the distant cheers of the women, their voices mingling with the sound of the surf, and he couldn't help but smile. This was his chance to shine, to show them he was more than just a guy wandering the beach. As he swam further from the shore, the water deepened, shifting from a playful turquoise to a darker, more mysterious blue. The sun danced on the surface, creating shimmering patterns that mesmerized him. But as he turned to glance back at the beach, a shadow flickered beneath him, a dark silhouette that sent a chill racing down his spine. He froze, his heart pounding in his chest, and instinctively, he kicked harder, propelling himself forward. But the shadow was persistent, gliding beneath him with an eerie grace. Panic surged through him as he realized what it was. A group of sharks, their sleek bodies cutting through the water with predatory elegance. He had heard stories of sharks lurking in these waters, but he had never imagined he would encounter them so close. His mind raced, torn between the primal urge to flee and the desperate need to impress the women watching from the shore. "Stay calm, Brad," he muttered to himself, his voice barely audible over the roar of the waves. "Just keep swimming. They can sense fear." He took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing heart. Instead of retreating, he decided to show off, to swim with a confidence he didn't quite feel. He kicked his legs harder, attempting to glide through the water with an elegance that would make him look like a seasoned swimmer. But as he twisted and turned, trying to maintain a facade of grace, he noticed the sharks circling beneath him, their movements becoming more erratic, more curious. It was as if they were drawn to his antics, intrigued by the splashes and commotion he was creating. The thrill of the chase was palpable, and he could feel the tension building in the water around him. "Hey, look at me," he called out, his voice strained but filled with bravado. He glanced back toward the beach, where the women had stopped their game, their eyes wide with a mix of awe and concern. "I'm fine. Just a little swim." He flashed a grin, hoping to mask the fear that was creeping into his chest. But the sharks were undeterred, their sleek bodies weaving closer, their dorsal fins slicing through the surface like knives. Brad's bravado began to falter as he realized the gravity of his situation. He was no longer just a guy trying to impress some girls. He was a potential meal in the eyes of these predators. The thrill of the moment had turned into a desperate struggle for survival. "Okay, Brad, think," he whispered to himself, his voice trembling. He remembered the advice he had read about dealing with sharks. Don't thrash, maintain eye contact, and back away slowly. But the instinct to flee was overwhelming, and he felt the urge to kick wildly, to escape the encroaching danger. With a deep breath, he forced himself to slow down, trying to keep his movements deliberate. He turned to face the sharks, his heart racing as he locked eyes with one of them, a sleek creature with a glint of intelligence in its dark gaze. It was both terrifying and mesmerizing, and for a moment, he felt a strange connection, as if they were both caught in a dance of survival. "Just keep swimming," he murmured, trying to project calmness. He began to back away slowly, moving toward the shore, his eyes never leaving the sharks. The water felt heavier now, as if it were conspiring against him, but he focused on the beach, on the laughter of the women, on the promise of safety just a few strokes away. "Brad, come back," one of the women shouted, her voice cutting through the tension like a lifeline. He recognized her as Mia, the one with the sun-kissed hair and infectious laughter. Her concern was palpable, and it fueled his determination to reach the safety of the shore. With renewed vigor, he kicked harder, propelling himself backward, his eyes darting between the sharks and the beach. The water churned around him, and he could feel the presence of the sharks lingering just beneath the surface, their curiosity piqued by his frantic movements. He was acutely aware of every splash, every ripple, as if the ocean itself were holding its breath. Come on," he urged himself, his muscles burning with effort. The beach was getting closer, the laughter of the women growing louder, but the sharks were still there, circling, watching. He could feel the weight of their gaze, a reminder of the danger lurking just beneath him. "Brad, you can do it," Mia's voice rang out again, filled with encouragement. He could see her now, standing at the water's edge, her arms raised as if to beckon him back. Her faith in him ignited a spark of hope, and he pushed himself harder, his strokes becoming more powerful, more desperate. Finally, with one last surge of energy, he lunged toward the shore, his feet finding the sandy bottom. He stumbled, half walking, half swimming, until he felt the solid ground beneath him. He turned back to the water, panting, and watched as the sharks retreated, their dark forms fading into the depths. Relief washed over him like a wave, and he collapsed onto the sand, gasping for breath. Brad. Mia rushed to his side, her expression a mix of concern and admiration. What were you thinking? You could have been. I know. He interrupted, still catching his breath. I just wanted to impress you guys. I didn't think. His voice trailed off, the adrenaline fading, leaving behind a sense of vulnerability he hadn't anticipated. Mia knelt beside him, her eyes searching his. Chapter 3. The Flounder and the Goldfish. The sun hung high in the cerulean sky, casting a golden hue over the beach where Brad had found himself just moments before. The laughter of the women playing volleyball echoed in his ears, a sound that had initially filled him with excitement but now felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the terror of the sharks lurking beneath the waves. As he had swum deeper into the ocean, his heart raced with a mix of fear and determination, a desperate attempt to impress the women that had quickly turned into a fight for survival. Now, as he dove deeper into the water, the world above faded into a distant murmur, replaced by a surreal underwater realm. The sunlight danced through the surface, creating a kaleidoscope of shimmering patterns that enveloped him. It was in this moment of desperation that he encountered Finn, a wise flounder with a mottled, flat body that blended seamlessly with the sandy ocean floor, and Goldie, a vibrant goldfish whose cheerful demeanor radiated warmth even in the depths of the sea. "Whoa there, buddy!" Finn exclaimed, his voice surprisingly deep for a fish. "You look like you've just seen a ghost. Or worse, a shark." Brad blinked, momentarily stunned by the talking fish. I'm kind of in a situation here," he stammered, glancing nervously over his shoulder. The shadows of the sharks loomed ominously in the distance, their sleek bodies cutting through the water with predatory grace. "Situation. More like a buffet," Goldie chimed in, his fins fluttering excitedly. "But don't worry, we've got your back." "Right, Finn." Finn rolled his eyes, a gesture that was surprisingly expressive for a fish. "Focus, Goldie. We need to help our friend here before he becomes a meal." "Brad, listen closely. The sharks are attracted to movement. If you keep thrashing around, they'll think you're a wounded fish and come for you." Brad nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. "So what do I do? Just float here?" "Not quite," Finn replied, his voice steady and reassuring. "You need to swim low and slow. Stay close to the ocean floor, and they'll be less likely to notice you." "But we can't just let you swim away. We need a distraction." "A distraction?" Brad echoed, his mind racing. "What do you have in mind?" Goldie swam in circles, his tiny body sparkling like a jewel in the water. "I've got a few tricks up my fins. How about a dance party?" "Sharks hate parties." Finn sighed, but there was a hint of a smile on his face. "I admire your enthusiasm, Goldie, but I think we need something a bit more strategic. How about we create a diversion? If we can lure the sharks away, Brad can make a break for it." Brad felt a flicker of hope. "How do we do that?" Finn's eyes glimmered with wisdom. "Goldie, you can create a cloud of sand by swimming rapidly near the ocean floor. The sharks will be drawn to the commotion, thinking it is a school of fish. Meanwhile, Brad can slip away unnoticed." "Got it," Goldie exclaimed, his fins flapping with excitement. I'll be the best sandstorm this ocean has ever seen. Brad felt a surge of adrenaline. Okay, let's do this. As Goldie darted toward the sandy bottom, Brad took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. He watched as Goldie swam in tight circles, kicking up a cloud of sand that billowed into the water like a miniature storm. The murky cloud swirled around him, and for a moment, he felt a sense of camaraderie with the little goldfish. Now, Brad, Finn urged, his voice cutting through the chaos. Swim low and fast. With a determined nod, Brad dove toward the ocean floor, his body gliding through the water with newfound purpose. He felt the current tugging at him, but he focused on Finn's words, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. The sand cloud grew thicker, and he could see the shadows of the sharks shifting, drawn to the disturbance. Come on, he muttered under his breath, his heart racing as he swam closer to the safety of a rocky outcrop. Look at them go, Goldie shouted, his voice bubbling with excitement. They're totally falling for it. Brad risked a glance back, and his stomach dropped. The sharks were circling the cloud of sand, their sleek bodies weaving in and out of the murky water, drawn by the chaos Goldie had created. He could see their sharp teeth glinting in the dim light, and a shiver ran down his spine. Now's your chance, Brad. Finn called, his voice steady and encouraging. Get to the rocks. With a burst of energy, Brad propelled himself forward, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the water rushing past him, the pressure building in his ears as he swam with all his might. The rocky outcrop loomed closer, and he could see the safety it promised. Almost there. Goldie cheered, his voice echoing in the water. You can do it. Just as Brad reached the rocks, he felt a sudden rush of water behind him. He turned, and his heart dropped as he saw one of the sharks breaking away from the cloud, its eyes locked onto him with predatory intent. Go, Brad. Go, Finn shouted, urgency lacing his voice. With a final burst of speed, Brad dove behind the rocks, pressing himself against the rough surface. He held his breath, the world around him fading into silence as he listened intently. The sound of the shark's movements echoed in the water, a reminder of how close he had come to disaster. Did you lose it? Goldie asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I think so, Brad replied, his heart still racing. But I can't stay here forever. Finn swam closer, his expression serious. You need to wait until the coast is clear. Sharks are patient hunters. They'll circle for a while before they give up. Brad nodded, his mind racing. He had come to this beach seeking adventure, a chance to break free from the monotony of his life. But now, he was trapped in a world of danger, surrounded by creatures that could easily end him. Hey, Goldie said, his voice brightening the somber mood. At least you've got us. You're not alone in this. Brad managed a small smile, grateful for the support of his unlikely companions. Thanks, Goldie. I appreciate it. Finn's eyes softened. You're braver than you think, Brad. Facing your fears is the first step to overcoming them. As they waited in silence, Brad's thoughts drifted back to the beach above, to the laughter of the women and the carefree joy of the sun-soaked day. Chapter 4. The Underwater City. As Brad swam deeper into the cerulean depths, the world above faded into a distant memory. The sun-drenched beach, with its laughter and vibrant colors, felt like a dream slipping through his fingers. Just moments ago, he had been floundering in the surf, trying to impress a group of women with his clumsy strokes, only to find himself surrounded by a menacing school of sharks. But now, guided by Finn the flounder's wise words and buoyed by Goldie the goldfish's infectious laughter, he was on the brink of an adventure that would change everything. The shimmering light beckoned him, a beacon of hope in the murky blue. As he swam closer, the water around him transformed. The shadows of the sharks receded, replaced by a kaleidoscope of colors that danced in the light. Coral structures rose majestically from the ocean floor, their vibrant hues of pink, orange, and purple creating a breathtaking skyline beneath the waves. Schools of fish darted in and out of the coral, their scales glinting like jewels in the sunlight filtering through the surface. "Welcome to Coralopolis," Finn exclaimed, his voice bubbling with excitement. "You're going to love it here." Brad's heart raced as he took in the sights. The underwater city was alive, pulsating with energy and laughter. Sea turtles glided gracefully through the water, while seahorses twirled playfully around the coral pillars. He felt a sense of wonder wash over him, a stark contrast to the panic that had gripped him just moments before. "Isn't it amazing?" Goldie chimed in, doing a little flip in the water. "And wait until you meet Ollie. He's the best host you could ask for." "Who's Ollie?" Brad asked, his curiosity piqued. "The ruler of Coralopolis," Finn replied, his fins flapping with enthusiasm. "He's a bit quirky, but he knows how to throw a feast. You'll love it." As they swam further into the city, Brad couldn't shake the feeling of being an intruder in this vibrant world. The laughter of the sea creatures echoed around him, a symphony of joy that contrasted sharply with the chaos he had just escaped. He felt a twinge of guilt thinking about the women on the beach, their carefree laughter now a distant echo. Would they miss him? Would they even notice he was gone? "Hey, don't worry about them," Goldie said, sensing Brad's hesitation. "You're here now. Just enjoy the moment." Brad nodded, forcing a smile as they approached a grand coral structure that resembled a palace. It was adorned with shimmering pearls and glistening seaweed, and the entrance was flanked by two imposing statues of sea lions. The sight was both intimidating and inspiring. "Here we are," Finn announced, swimming up to the entrance. "Ollie's waiting for you." As they entered, Brad was greeted by a sight that took his breath away. The interior was illuminated by bioluminescent plants that cast a soft glow over the gathering of sea creatures. A long table made of polished driftwood was laden with an array of colorful dishes. Seaweed salads, kelp cakes, and a variety of shellfish that made Brad's stomach growl in anticipation. "Ah, a new face," boomed a voice that echoed through the hall. Brad turned to see an octopus with vibrant blue and purple tentacles gliding toward him. Ollie's eyes sparkled with mischief and wisdom, and a wide grin spread across his face. "Welcome, young swimmer. I'm Ollie, the proud ruler of Coralopolis. Come, join us for a feast." Brad felt a rush of warmth at the octopus's welcoming demeanor. "Thank you, Ollie. Just stumbled in here, really." "Stumbled? Nonsense." Ollie chuckled, his tentacles swirling around him like a colorful whirlwind. "You were drawn here by the magic of the ocean. Now, sit, eat, and tell us your tale." As Brad settled onto a cushion made of soft seaweed, he couldn't help but feel a sense of belonging. The creatures around him were friendly and curious, their eyes sparkling with interest. He shared his story. How he had found himself on the beach, the sharks that had chased him, and how he had met Finn and Goldie. Laughter erupted at Goldie's antics, and Brad felt the tension of his earlier fears begin to dissolve. "Sharks, you say?" Ollie leaned in, his expression serious. "They can be quite the menace, but they're not all bad." "Just misunderstood, really. You must learn to navigate their world with respect." Brad nodded, absorbing Ollie's words. "I didn't realize that. I was just trying to impress some girls on the beach." "Ah, the age-old quest for admiration," Ollie said, his eyes twinkling. "But remember, young swimmer, true admiration comes from being genuine, not from bravado." As the feast continued, Brad found himself laughing and sharing stories with the sea creatures. He felt lighter, as if the weight of his insecurities had been washed away by the ocean currents. Yet, beneath the surface of his newfound joy, a conflict brewed. The laughter of the women on the beach echoed in his mind, a reminder of the world he had left behind. "Are you going to stay with us?" Finn asked, his voice laced with hope. "You could be a part of Coralopolis." Brad hesitated, his heart torn. The underwater city was enchanting, filled with wonder and camaraderie. But the thought of abandoning the beach, the women, and the life he had known felt like a betrayal. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I have a life up there." Ollie's expression softened. "Life is a series of choices, my friend. You must follow your heart, wherever it leads you. But know this. The ocean has a way of revealing truths you may not yet understand." As the feast wound down, Brad felt a sense of urgency rising within him. He needed to make a decision, but the weight of it felt suffocating. The laughter of the sea creatures faded into the background as he wrestled with his thoughts. "Hey, Brad." Goldie swam up beside him, his eyes wide with excitement. "What if we had a race? You could show us how fast you can swim." "Yeah." Finn chimed in. "It'll be fun. And it might help you clear your head." Brad considered it for a moment. A race would be a distraction, a way to escape the turmoil brewing inside him. "All right, let's do it," he said, a spark of determination igniting within him. The sea creatures cheered, and soon they were gathered at the edge of a coral reef, ready to race through the underwater city. Brad felt a rush of adrenaline as he took his mark, the thrill of competition igniting a fire within him. Chapter 5. The Feast of Fishes. The last rays of sunlight filtered through the water, casting a golden hue over the vibrant coral city. Brad had never imagined that beneath the waves, a world so alive and colorful could exist. Just moments ago, he had been floundering in a sea of panic, surrounded by hungry sharks, but now he found himself in the company of friendly sea creatures, welcomed by the quirky octopus named Ollie. The laughter of the women on the beach still echoed in his mind, a bittersweet reminder of the life he had left behind, yet the allure of this underwater paradise was undeniable. As he followed Ollie through the bustling streets of the coral city, Brad marveled at the sights around him. Schools of fish darted past, their scales glimmering like jewels in the sunlight that filtered down from above. Sea turtles glided gracefully through the water, their wise eyes observing the festivities with a calm demeanor. The air, or rather, the water, was filled with the sounds of laughter and chatter, a symphony of voices that blended seamlessly with the gentle lapping of waves against the coral structures. "Welcome to the grand feast of fishes," Ollie announced, his tentacles waving excitedly. "Tonight, we celebrate friendship, unity, and the bounty of the sea. Come, you must try the seaweed salad. It is to die for." Brad chuckled, his nerves beginning to ease as he followed the octopus to a long table adorned with an array of bizarre yet enticing dishes. There were shimmering jellyfish appetizers, vibrant seaweed salads, and even a peculiar dish that looked like a giant clam, its shell glistening with a pearlescent sheen. The scents wafting through the water were surprisingly appetizing, a mix of salty brine and fresh ocean air. "Don't be shy," a sassy shrimp piped up, her bright pink shell glimmering as she bounced on her tiny legs. "You've got to try the kelp chips. They're the best thing since sliced sea cucumber." Brad couldn't help but laugh at her enthusiasm. "I'll take your word for it," he replied, reaching for a plate. As he filled it with an assortment of dishes, he felt a sense of belonging wash over him. The initial shock of his surroundings was fading, replaced by a growing curiosity and excitement. As he settled down at the table, surrounded by a motley crew of sea creatures, he felt a warmth in his chest. A wise old turtle named Tully sat beside him, his shell adorned with barnacles that told stories of the ocean's depths. "You're quite the brave one, aren't you?" Tully remarked, his voice deep and soothing. "Most land dwellers would have fled at the sight of sharks." Brad shrugged, a hint of embarrassment creeping into his cheeks. "I guess I just wanted to impress the women on the beach," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Tully chuckled, a sound like gravel rolling over smooth stones. "Ah, the allure of the surface world. But tell me, young one, do you truly wish to return to that life? Or have you found something more here?" The question hung in the water, heavy and contemplative. Brad glanced around the table, watching as the creatures shared stories and laughter, their camaraderie infectious. He felt a pang of longing for the beach, for the sun-soaked sand and the laughter of the women, but there was something undeniably captivating about this underwater world. "I don't know," he finally replied, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "It's all so different." "Different can be good," the shrimp chimed in, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "You just have to dive in and embrace it. Like the time I challenged a dolphin to a race. Spoiler alert. I lost, but it was the most fun I've ever had." Brad smiled, her enthusiasm infectious. He took a bite of the kelp chips, the salty crunch exploding in his mouth. "These are amazing," he exclaimed, his eyes widening in surprise. "I never thought I'd enjoy seaweed this much." "See, you're already adapting," Ollie said, his eyes twinkling with delight. "Now, let's toast to new friendships." As they raised their glasses, made from polished shells filled with a bubbly seafoam drink, Brad felt a sense of unity enveloping him. Laughter echoed around the table, and for the first time since his arrival, he felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this underwater city could be a place of adventure and belonging. But just as he began to relax, a shadow crossed his mind. The women on the beach. Their laughter, their carefree spirits, and the way they had looked at him with curiosity. He felt a pang of longing, a reminder of the life he had left behind. "What if I never see them again?" he murmured, the thought slipping from his lips before he could catch it. Tully's gaze softened, and he placed a gentle flipper on Brad's shoulder. "Life is a series of choices, my friend. You can choose to dwell on what you've lost, or you can embrace what you've found. The ocean is vast, and so are the possibilities." Brad nodded, but the weight of his longing lingered. He glanced at the shimmering surface above, where the sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the water. I don't want to regret anything," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Regret is a heavy anchor," Ollie said, his tone serious. "But remember, every moment is a chance to create new memories. You can carry the past with you, but don't let it drown you." As the feast continued, Brad found himself caught in a whirlwind of laughter and stories. He listened to tales of daring escapes from predators, of friendships forged in the depths of the ocean, and of adventures that spanned the vast underwater world. The creatures around him were vibrant and full of life, and he felt himself being pulled into their stories, their joy. But as the night wore on, the pang of longing for the beach grew stronger. He could almost hear the distant laughter of the women, the sound of the waves crashing against the shore. It was a siren call, beckoning him back to the surface. "Hey, Brad!" the shrimp shouted, snapping him from his reverie. "You've got to try the jellyfish jelly. It's a delicacy." He forced a smile, but his heart wasn't in it. "Maybe later," he replied, his mind still drifting to the surface world. The laughter, the sun, the thrill of being noticed. He felt torn between two worlds, each calling to him in its own way. As the feast began to wind down, Ollie stood up, his tentacles raised high. "And now, for the grand finale. A dance to celebrate our new friend." The creatures erupted into cheers, and Brad felt a rush of excitement mixed with apprehension. He had never been much of a dancer, especially not in front of a crowd. Chapter 6. Chapter 6. The Shark Showdown. The vibrant underwater city pulsed with life, its coral structures shimmering in hues of pink and orange, as if the sun itself had descended to dance among the sea creatures. Brad had been swept into a world that felt both fantastical and surreal, a stark contrast to the sun-soaked beach he had left behind. Just moments ago, he had been a nervous outsider, watching a group of women play volleyball, their laughter echoing like music across the waves. Now, he was surrounded by a community of friendly sea creatures, each one more colorful and eccentric than the last. Yet, despite the warmth of their welcome, a gnawing anxiety tugged at him. He was still acutely aware of the danger lurking just beyond the city's shimmering borders. Finn, the wise flounder, swam beside him, his flat body gliding effortlessly through the water. "You know, Brad," he said, his voice calm and steady, "the sharks are not just mindless predators. They're curious creatures. If we can give them something to focus on, we might just have a chance." Goldie, the cheerful goldfish, darted in circles around them, his scales glinting like tiny jewels. "And I've got the perfect idea. A giant bubble. We can make it big enough to catch their attention and lead them away from the beach." His enthusiasm was infectious, and Brad felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. "Okay," Brad replied, his voice steadying as he considered their plan. "But how do we create a bubble big enough to distract them?" Finn's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Leave that to me. I know just the trick." He swam ahead, gesturing for Brad to follow. As they approached the outskirts of the city, Brad's heart raced. The water grew darker, the shadows of the sharks looming ever closer. He could almost feel their predatory gaze, a reminder of the danger that still lurked. "Remember, Brad," Finn said, glancing back at him. "You're not alone in this. We're in this together." Brad nodded, taking a deep breath. The salty tang of the ocean filled his lungs, mingling with the sweet scent of the coral city. He could hear the faint sounds of laughter and music from the feast they had just left, but it felt distant now, overshadowed by the impending confrontation. As they reached a secluded spot, Finn began to gather the tiny bubbles that floated around them, weaving them together with a flick of his fins. "We'll need to make it big enough to catch their attention but not so big that it bursts before we can use it," he explained, his voice steady despite the urgency of the situation. Goldie swam in circles, his excitement bubbling over. "I'll help. I can blow bubbles too." He puffed out his cheeks and released a stream of shimmering bubbles that danced in the water, adding to Finn's growing creation. Brad watched in awe as the bubble expanded, shimmering like a giant pearl. "It's beautiful," he murmured, feeling a mix of admiration and trepidation. "But will it really work?" Finn paused, his expression serious. "It has to. We need to lure the sharks away from the beach. If we can do that, you can swim back to the surface and join those women. You can't let fear hold you back, Brad." The thought of the women, their laughter and warmth, filled him with determination. "You're right. I can't let fear win." He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. With the bubble now fully formed, Finn and Goldie swam to the edge of the city, peering into the dark waters beyond. The sharks were circling, their sleek bodies cutting through the water with predatory grace. Brad's heart raced as he spotted the glint of their teeth, sharp and menacing. "On my count," Finn said, his voice low and steady. 1, 2, 3. With a swift motion, they released the bubble into the water. It floated upward, catching the light and reflecting it in a dazzling display. The sharks paused, their attention drawn to the shimmering orb as it danced above them. "Now," Goldie shouted, darting toward the bubble. Let's go. Brad followed, his heart pounding in his chest. As they swam, he could feel the shark's curiosity shift into a frenzy. They lunged toward the bubble, snapping their jaws as it floated just out of reach. The distraction worked, but the danger was far from over. Keep going, Finn urged, his voice rising above the chaos. We need to get to the surface. Brad pushed himself harder, his limbs moving with a newfound urgency. The water felt thick around him, but he fought against it, determined to break free. As they swam, he could hear the muffled sounds of the beach above, the laughter of the women mingling with the crashing waves. Suddenly, a shadow loomed above him, and Brad's heart dropped. One of the sharks had broken away from the bubble, its eyes locked onto him with a predatory gleam. Panic surged through him, but he forced himself to focus. He couldn't let fear take control. Brad, Finn called, his voice cutting through the water. Swim faster. You can do this. With every ounce of strength, Brad surged upward, the surface of the water glimmering just above him. He could see the sunlight breaking through, a beacon of hope. But the shark was gaining on him, its powerful tail propelling it forward with terrifying speed. Almost there. Goldie shouted, his tiny body darting beside Brad. Just a little more. As they neared the surface, Brad felt a surge of adrenaline. He kicked harder, his lungs burning, the salty water stinging his eyes. He could hear the shark's powerful movements behind him, the rush of water as it closed in. With one final push, Brad broke through the surface, gasping for air. The sun hit his face like a warm embrace, and he could see the beach just a few yards away. The women were still there, their laughter ringing out like a siren's call. Go, Brad. Swim. Finn urged from below, his voice echoing in the water. Brad turned, glancing back just in time to see the shark breach the surface, its massive body glistening in the sunlight. It snapped its jaws, but Brad was already swimming with all his might toward the shore. He could feel the sand beneath his feet, the warmth of the sun enveloping him as he reached the shallows. With one last burst of energy, he lunged forward, collapsing onto the beach, gasping for breath. The laughter of the women surrounded him, their voices a sweet melody that drowned out the chaos of the water. He rolled onto his back, the warm sand pressing against his skin, and looked up at the sky, the blue stretching endlessly above him. Brad. One of the women, a tall brunette with sparkling eyes, rushed over, concern etched on her face. Are you okay? Chapter 7. Chapter 7. The return to the surface. The last echoes of laughter and the vibrant colors of the underwater city lingered in Brad's mind as he swam toward the surface. He could still hear Goldie's cheerful voice, punctuated by Finn's wise counsel, urging him to embrace his fears. The sharks were no longer the terrifying predators they had once seemed. They were a challenge, a test of his newfound courage. As he kicked his legs and propelled himself upward, the weight of his adventure settled on his shoulders like a warm embrace. He was ready to face whatever awaited him above. Emerging from the water, Brad gasped for air, the salty tang of the ocean filling his lungs. The sun blazed overhead, casting a golden hue over the beach, where the women still played, their laughter mingling with the rhythmic crash of the waves. He shook his head, sending droplets flying, and took a moment to catch his breath, his heart racing not just from the swim but from the anticipation of sharing his story. As he stepped onto the warm sand, he felt the familiar thrill of excitement mixed with a twinge of anxiety. He was dripping wet, his hair slicked back, and his skin glistened in the sunlight. He glanced at the group of women, their laughter ringing out like music, but instead of the warm welcome he had hoped for, their attention was drawn to the water, where a few curious sharks still circled. Look! There's one! A woman shouted, pointing toward the shimmering surface. Her voice was filled with a mix of awe and fear, and the others gathered closer, their eyes wide with excitement. Brad's heart sank. He had imagined a grand reunion, a moment where he would regale them with tales of his underwater adventure, but instead, they were captivated by the very creatures he had faced down. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. This was his moment to shine, to show them he was more than just a guy on the beach. "Hey!" he called out, his voice cutting through the chatter. "You won't believe what I just saw down there." The women turned, their expressions shifting from fear to curiosity. One of them, a tall brunette with sun-kissed skin and a playful glint in her eye, stepped forward. "What do you mean? You were down there with the sharks?" "Yeah," Brad said, his confidence surging. "I just came from an underwater city. It's incredible. There are talking fish, and I even had dinner with an octopus." The group exchanged skeptical glances, but the brunette raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "An underwater city? You're kidding, right?" "No, I'm serious," Brad insisted, his voice rising with excitement. "I met a wise flounder named Finn and a goldfish named Goldie. They helped me escape the sharks." "Goldie," another woman chimed in, her laughter bubbling up. "That sounds like a cartoon character." Brad chuckled, the tension easing slightly. "I know it sounds crazy, but it is true. They helped me distract the sharks with this giant bubble, and I swam back to the surface. You should have seen it." The women's laughter faded, replaced by a mix of disbelief and intrigue. The brunette stepped closer, her eyes narrowing as she studied him. "Okay, if you're telling the truth, what did the octopus look like?" Brad's mind raced, recalling Ollie's vibrant colors and quirky personality. He was bright purple with these wild, swirling patterns. He had a knack for storytelling, too. You wouldn't believe the tales he told about the ocean. "All right, I'm listening," the brunette said, crossing her arms. "But if you're pulling our leg, you owe us a round of drinks." Brad grinned, feeling the warmth of her interest. "Deal. But first, let me tell you about the feast. It was unlike anything you've ever tasted. Seaweed salad, jellyfish jelly, and even a special dish made from the finest coral." As he spoke, he noticed the women leaning in, their initial skepticism giving way to fascination. He painted vivid pictures with his words, describing the vibrant colors of the underwater city, the laughter of the sea creatures, and the thrill of swimming alongside the sharks. With each detail, he felt more alive, more connected to them. "Wait, so you're saying you were actually swimming with sharks?" the brunette asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. "That's insane. I would never have the guts to do that." Brad shrugged, a playful smile on his lips. "I didn't have a choice. It was either swim or become shark bait. But with Finn and Goldie's help, I realized I could face my fears." The women exchanged glances, and Brad could see the shift in their demeanor. They were no longer just spectators. They were captivated by his story, drawn in by the adventure he had lived. The brunette's expression softened, and she took a step closer, her curiosity piqued. "Okay, I have to know," she said, her voice low and conspiratorial. "What's the craziest thing you saw down there?" Brad leaned in, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret. "There was this moment during the feast when Ollie challenged me to a dance-off. Can you imagine? A human dancing with an octopus. It was hilarious." The women erupted into laughter, the sound bright and infectious. Brad felt a rush of warmth, a sense of belonging that he hadn't anticipated. He was no longer just the guy who had stumbled onto the beach. He was the hero of his own story, and they were eager to hear more. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the sand, Brad continued to weave his tale, each word drawing the women closer. He could see their eyes sparkling with excitement, their laughter mingling with the sound of the waves. For the first time, he felt a sense of connection, a bond forged through shared adventure and laughter. But as the sun sank lower, a shadow flickered across his mind. He remembered the sharks, the danger that had lurked beneath the surface. What if they returned? What if his newfound friends were in danger? The thought sent a shiver down his spine, and he glanced nervously at the water. "Hey, are you okay?" the brunette asked, her voice laced with concern. "You look a little pale." Brad forced a smile, shaking off the unease. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just thinking about the sharks. They're still out there, you know." The group fell silent, the laughter fading as they exchanged wary glances. The brunette stepped closer, her expression softening. "You faced them, though. You swam with them and lived to tell the tale. That's pretty brave." "Brave or stupid," Brad muttered, his heart racing. "I just hope they don't come back." "Maybe they're just curious," she said, her voice soothing. "Like us. You're not the only one who's faced fears today." Brad looked at her, surprised. Chapter 8. Chapter 8. The Unexpected Twist. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the beach as Brad emerged from the water, his heart still racing from the thrill of his underwater adventure. Just moments ago, he had been swimming alongside Finn, the wise flounder, and Goldie, the cheerful goldfish, devising a plan to distract the sharks that had haunted his every stroke. Now, with the salty taste of the ocean still lingering on his lips, he felt a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. The women on the beach, vibrant and carefree, had been his initial focus, but the memory of the underwater city and its quirky inhabitants tugged at his heartstrings. As he approached the group of women, their laughter echoed like music, and he felt a surge of confidence. He was ready to share his tale, to weave the magic of his underwater escapade into words that would captivate their attention. But just as he opened his mouth to speak, the ground beneath him trembled, a low rumble that sent a shiver through the sand. "What was that?" one of the women exclaimed, her eyes wide with surprise. Before anyone could respond, a colossal wave surged toward the shore, crashing down with a thunderous roar. The beach erupted into chaos as people scrambled to avoid the incoming tide. Brad stumbled backward, his heart racing as he fought to maintain his balance. The wave, however, had other plans. It swept over him, drenching him anew and sending a spray of saltwater into the air. When the water receded, Brad blinked, shaking droplets from his hair. But he wasn't alone. Emerging from the frothy surf was a sleek, friendly dolphin, her skin glistening in the sunlight. She leapt gracefully onto the sand, her eyes sparkling with intelligence and mischief. "Daisy!" Brad gasped, recognizing her from his underwater adventure. The dolphin had come to rescue him and his friends. The women gasped, their attention shifting from the chaos of the wave to the enchanting creature before them. Brad's heart sank slightly. He had hoped to be the center of their attention, but Daisy was a dazzling distraction. "Look at her!" one of the women squealed, her voice high with excitement. "She's beautiful." Daisy flipped her tail, sending a spray of water into the air, and the women squealed again, rushing closer to the dolphin. Brad felt a pang of jealousy twist in his gut. He had just faced down sharks and navigated an underwater city, yet here he was, overshadowed by a dolphin. "Hey, everyone!" he called out, trying to reclaim the spotlight. "You won't believe what I just experienced down there. I met Finn, the flounder, and Ollie, the octopus who rules the underwater city." But the women were too captivated by Daisy, who was now performing playful flips and spins in the shallow water. Brad's voice faded into the background, drowned out by their laughter and cheers. He crossed his arms, feeling a mix of frustration and longing. Brad, come on, join her. One of the women urged, her eyes sparkling with delight. You can swim with her. He hesitated, glancing at Daisy, who seemed to be beckoning him with her playful demeanor. The thought of swimming alongside her was tempting, but he felt a strange sense of competition. Would he be able to impress the women if he shared the spotlight with a dolphin? Yeah, maybe I will, he muttered, forcing a smile. He stepped closer to the water's edge, the cool waves lapping at his feet. Daisy, let's show them what we can do. With a deep breath, he dove into the water, the coolness enveloping him like a comforting embrace. He swam toward Daisy, who was waiting for him with a playful glint in her eye. As he approached, she leapt into the air, twisting and turning with an elegance that made his heart race. Okay, Brad, you can do this, he whispered to himself, channeling the confidence he had felt in the underwater city. He mimicked Daisy's movements, attempting to leap from the water like she did. But instead of the graceful arc he envisioned, he flopped awkwardly, splashing water everywhere. The women erupted into laughter, and Brad felt his cheeks flush with embarrassment. Not quite like that, he called out, trying to laugh along. But the sting of humiliation lingered. Daisy, sensing his struggle, swam closer, nudging him playfully with her snout. Come on, Brad. Just have fun. Her eyes seemed to say. With renewed determination, he focused on the joy of the moment rather than the attention of the women. He swam alongside Daisy, matching her rhythm, and soon they were dancing through the waves, a seamless blend of human and dolphin. The laughter of the women faded into the background as he lost himself in the exhilaration of the water, the sun warming his back, and the thrill of the chase. See, you're a natural, Daisy chirped, her voice melodic and encouraging. Thanks, Daisy, he replied, feeling a genuine smile spread across his face. The dolphin's presence was comforting, a reminder of the friendships he had forged beneath the waves. As they played, Brad noticed the women had gathered at the water's edge, their eyes wide with admiration. Look at him go, one of them exclaimed. He's amazing. A flicker of pride ignited within him. Maybe he didn't need to compete with Daisy. Perhaps he could embrace the magic of the moment and share it with everyone. With a final leap, he soared from the water, splashing down beside Daisy, who let out a series of joyful clicks. The women erupted into applause, and Brad felt a rush of warmth flood through him. Okay, I'll tell you all about my adventure now, he called out, swimming back to the shore, where the women eagerly awaited his story. As he recounted his encounter with Finn in the underwater city, the women listened intently, their eyes sparkling with wonder. And then Ollie, the octopus, served us a feast of seaweed and plankton that was surprisingly delicious. He exclaimed, gesturing animatedly. Wait, you mean to tell me you had dinner with an octopus? One of the women asked, her voice filled with disbelief. Absolutely. He's quite the chef, Brad replied, his confidence growing with each word. And Finn gave me the best advice on how to handle the sharks. It was incredible. As he spoke, he noticed Daisy swimming nearby, her presence a comforting reminder of his adventure. The women's laughter and gasps of amazement filled the air, and for the first time since he had emerged from the water, he felt truly seen. But just as he was about to dive into the climax of his tale, a shadow passed overhead, darkening the sun. Brad looked up, his heart sinking as he recognized the shape gliding through the sky. Is that? One of the women began. Chapter 9. The Great Escape. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden rays over the beach, where laughter mingled with the rhythmic crash of waves. Brad had just emerged from an extraordinary underwater adventure, where he had faced sharks, befriended a wise flounder named Finn, and dined with an octopus named Ollie. Yet, as he stood dripping wet on the shore, the thrill of his escapade was overshadowed by the realization that the women he had hoped to impress were more captivated by the arrival of a friendly dolphin named Daisy than by his tales of bravery. Daisy, with her sleek, glistening body and playful demeanor, had turned the beach into a scene of joyous chaos. The women squealed with delight as she leapt through the air, her movements graceful and effortless, a stark contrast to Brad's earlier clumsy attempts to impress them. He felt a pang of envy mixed with admiration. How could he compete with a creature so effortlessly enchanting? "Hey, Brad! Come on!" one of the women called, her voice bright and inviting. It was Mia, the one with sun-kissed hair and a smile that could light up the darkest ocean depths. "Daisy wants to take us for a ride. You should join us." Brad hesitated, glancing at the water where Daisy was now spinning in circles, inviting them to join her. The thrill of the ride tugged at him, but so did the fear of being overshadowed once again. What if he floundered in the water, unable to keep up? What if the women laughed at him, just like the sharks had? "Come on, Brad. Don't be a chicken," Mia teased, her laughter ringing like music in his ears. With a deep breath, he pushed aside his insecurities. "All right, I'm in," he shouted, his voice stronger than he felt. As he waded into the water, the coolness enveloped him, refreshing and invigorating. The waves lapped at his legs, and he could feel the energy of the ocean pulsing beneath him. Daisy swam closer, her large, expressive eyes sparkling with mischief. "Hold on tight," she seemed to say, her body arching playfully as she beckoned them closer. The women squealed again, their excitement infectious. Brad positioned himself beside Mia, who grinned at him, her eyes shining with exhilaration. "Ready?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the crashing waves. "Ready," he replied, his heart racing with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. With a swift flick of her tail, Daisy surged forward, propelling them through the water. The sensation was exhilarating. The wind whipped through Brad's hair, and the salty spray kissed his face. Laughter erupted from the group as they rode the waves, their cheers echoing across the beach. For the first time, Brad felt a sense of belonging, a camaraderie that made him forget the sharks lurking beneath the surface. "Look at us," Mia shouted, her voice filled with joy. "This is amazing." Brad couldn't help but smile, the tension in his chest easing as he shared this moment with her. The thrill of the ride, combined with the warmth of her presence, made him feel alive. He glanced at the other women, who were equally enthralled, their laughter ringing like bells in the air. As they rode the waves, Brad's confidence began to swell. He leaned forward, mimicking Daisy's movements, and to his surprise, he found himself gliding through the water with a newfound grace. The women cheered him on, their encouragement fueling his determination. "Look at Brad go," one of them shouted, and he felt a rush of pride. But just as he began to bask in the glory of their admiration, a shadow flickered beneath the surface. His heart dropped as he remembered the sharks that had once circled him. Panic surged through him, but he quickly pushed it aside. Daisy was here. They were safe. "Hold on tight," Daisy called, her voice a melodic echo in the water. With a powerful thrust, she dove deeper, and Brad felt the rush of water around him. The world above faded, replaced by a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes. He caught glimpses of coral reefs and schools of fish darting around them, a vibrant underwater world that felt both familiar and foreign. "Where are we going?" he shouted, his voice bubbling with excitement. "To the big wave," Mia replied, her laughter bubbling over. "It's going to be epic." As they swam deeper, the water grew darker, but the thrill of the ride kept fear at bay. Brad could feel the energy building, the anticipation crackling in the air. They were heading toward a massive wave, one that promised to launch them into the sky like a rocket. "Get ready," Daisy called, her voice filled with excitement. As they approached the wave, Brad's heart raced. He could see the crest rising before them, a towering wall of water that seemed to stretch into the heavens. "This is it," he shouted, adrenaline coursing through him. With one final push, Daisy surged upward, and they soared into the air. Time seemed to slow as they reached the peak, the world below shrinking into a blur. For a moment, they were weightless, suspended in the air, and Brad felt a rush of freedom like never before. Then, they plummeted down, the wave crashing around them in a cacophony of sound and spray. Laughter erupted from the group as they splashed into the water, the thrill of the ride leaving them breathless. As they surfaced, Brad gasped for air, his heart still racing. The women surrounded him, their faces lit with joy. "That was incredible," Mia exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. Brad grinned, the warmth of their camaraderie washing over him. "I can't believe we did that." But just as he began to bask in the afterglow of their adventure, he noticed something in the distance. The water was churning, and the shadows of the sharks were returning, drawn by the commotion. "Uh-oh," he muttered, his heart sinking. "What's wrong?" Mia asked, her brow furrowing as she followed his gaze. "The sharks," he said, his voice low. "They're back." A wave of tension rippled through the group as they turned to face the approaching danger. The playful atmosphere shifted, replaced by an undercurrent of fear. "Daisy, what do we do?" Brad asked, his voice rising with urgency. Daisy swam closer, her expression serious. "We need to distract them. If we can create enough noise and movement, they might lose interest." "Like before?" Brad asked, recalling the bubble distraction they had used in the underwater city. "Exactly," Daisy replied, her determination shining through. "But we'll need to work together." Brad nodded, adrenaline coursing through him. "All right, let's do this." The women rallied around him, their fear transforming into resolve. "What do we need to do?" Mia asked, her voice steady. "Let's create a splash." Chapter 10. Chapter 10. A New Beginning. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm golden hue over the beach as Brad sat around the crackling bonfire, the flames dancing in rhythm with the laughter of the women beside him. Just hours ago, he had been submerged in a world of vibrant coral and friendly sea creatures, battling his fears and discovering the depths of his own courage. Now, as he watched the embers flicker against the twilight sky, he felt a sense of belonging that had eluded him for far too long. The women, still buzzing with excitement from their day's adventures, shared stories of their own. They recounted their daring rides on Daisy the dolphin, their voices rising and falling like the waves that had brought them together. Each laugh echoed in Brad's chest, a reminder that he was no longer just an observer in his own life. He was part of something larger, something exhilarating. "Did you really swim with sharks?" One of the women, a spirited brunette named Mia, asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "I can't believe you didn't freak out." Brad chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck, a nervous habit he had developed. "Well, I might have panicked a little at first," he admitted, glancing at the others. "But then I met Finn and Goldie, and they helped me figure out a plan." Finn and Goldie. Another woman, a tall blonde named Sarah, leaned in closer, intrigued. "Are they real? Or just part of your imagination?" "Both, I guess," Brad replied, his heart racing at the thought of the wise flounder and the cheerful goldfish. "They're real in the sense that they helped me face my fears. And I think they're a part of me now, too." The group fell silent for a moment, the crackling fire the only sound as they absorbed his words. Brad could feel the weight of their gazes, a mix of admiration and disbelief. It was a strange feeling, being seen in this way, as if he had stepped out of the shadows and into the light. "Okay, Mr. Shark Whisperer," Mia teased, breaking the tension. "What's next? Are you going to dive into the ocean again and bring back a treasure?" Brad laughed, the sound bubbling up from his chest. "Maybe I'll bring back a pearl or two. Or a whole chest full of gold coins. Or a giant octopus." Sarah chimed in, her laughter infectious. "I'd love to see that." As the sun sank lower, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Brad felt a warmth spreading through him that had nothing to do with the fire. It was a sense of connection, of camaraderie, that he had never experienced before. He glanced at the women, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames, and realized that the true adventure wasn't just about escaping sharks or swimming with dolphins. It was about forging friendships and embracing life in all its chaotic beauty. "Hey, can I ask you all something?" Brad said, his voice steady despite the fluttering in his stomach. "What brought you to this beach today?" The question hung in the air, and the women exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from playful to contemplative. Finally, Mia spoke up, her tone more serious. "I needed a break. Life back home was overwhelming. I thought a beach getaway would help me clear my head." "Same here," Sarah added, her gaze drifting to the waves. "I was feeling lost, like I was just going through the motions." This trip was supposed to be a reset. Brad nodded, understanding their sentiments all too well. "I get that. I've been feeling a bit lost myself. This beach. It feels like a dream, doesn't it?" "It really does," Mia agreed, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "Like we're in a different world." As the conversation flowed, Brad found himself sharing more about his life, his struggles, and his dreams. He spoke of his mundane job, the monotony that had dulled his spirit, and how he had longed for something more. The women listened intently, their expressions shifting from empathy to encouragement. "You should follow your dreams, Brad," Sarah said, her voice firm. "Don't let fear hold you back. Life is too short for that." "Yeah, you've already faced sharks," Mia added with a grin. "What's stopping you from going after what you really want?" Their words ignited a spark within him, a flicker of hope that had been buried beneath layers of self-doubt. Maybe this was the beginning of something new, a chance to redefine himself beyond the confines of his old life. He felt a swell of gratitude for the adventure that had brought him here, for the friendships that were blossoming around the fire. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared, leaving the sky a deep indigo, Brad took a deep breath, inhaling the salty air mixed with the scent of burning wood. He felt a sense of clarity wash over him, a realization that he didn't have to choose between the dream world beneath the waves and the vibrant life above. He could embrace both. "Thank you," he said, his voice earnest, "for reminding me that life is an adventure. I want to make the most of it." The women smiled, their eyes shining with encouragement. Just then, a gentle breeze swept across the beach, rustling the palm fronds and carrying the distant sound of waves crashing against the shore. It felt like a promise, a whisper of new beginnings. As the night deepened, they shared more stories, laughter echoing into the darkness. Brad felt a sense of belonging that he had never known before, a warmth that wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. He glanced at the stars twinkling above, each one a reminder of the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. But just as the conversation began to wind down, a sudden chill swept through the air, causing Brad to shiver. He looked around, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. The laughter faded, replaced by an uneasy silence. The fire crackled ominously, casting flickering shadows that danced across the sand. "What was that?" Mia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Brad's heart raced as he scanned the horizon, the waves now crashing more violently against the shore. "I don't know," he replied, unease creeping into his voice. It feels different. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed from the ocean, a sound that sent a shiver down his spine. The ground beneath them trembled, and the fire flickered wildly as if responding to an unseen force. The women exchanged worried glances, their earlier joy replaced by apprehension. Maybe it is just the tide, Sarah suggested, though her voice lacked conviction. But Brad felt it too. A sense of foreboding that settled in the pit of his stomach. He stood up, scanning the water, his instincts on high alert. We should be careful. Something doesn't feel right. Just then, a massive wave surged toward the shore, towering higher than any they had seen that day. The women gasped, scrambling to their feet as the wave crashed down.